April 1943, North Africa. The canvas walls of the British interrogation tent rippled in the hot wind. Marlene Hartmann stood between two other women, her hands trembling despite every effort to control them. 24 years old, Luftwaffe signals officer, daughter of a decorated Great War veteran, now a prisoner. She had been trained for this moment, weeks of instruction on what to expect if captured. The propaganda films shown to all female auxiliary personnel. The warnings delivered in clipped, certain voices. The British will separate you, interrogate you, break you. They are barbarians beneath their civilized veneer. Remember your training. Give only name, rank, and serial number. Expect no mercy. A British officer walked past, speaking to another soldier. The words came clear through the stifling air. Perfect German. Not textbook German, not the halting, accented German of a language student. The fluid, effortless German of someone who grew up speaking it. Hamburg German, the exact dialect Marlene had heard her entire life in the streets of her hometown. She grabbed Dr. Frederica Adler's arm. Did you hear that? Frederica, 31, always composed, always analytical, nodded slowly. Her face had gone pale beneath 3 days of desert dust. That was native German, she whispered. 19-year-old Liesel Bauer pressed closer to them both, the youngest of their signals unit, farm girl, from Bavaria, eyes wide with fear. How? Liesel's voice cracked. How does a British officer speak perfect German? The officer turned, noticed them watching. He walked over. Mid-40s, weathered face, no cruelty in his eyes, just professionalism. You'll be processed shortly, he said in English, then, seeing their confusion, switched to flawless German. Water and medical attention if you need it. The Red Cross has been notified of your capture. He walked away. Marlene stood frozen. 3 days ago, their commanding officers had fled the collapsing Tunisian front, left 847 women behind, the entire female signals corps, abandoned like equipment too heavy to carry. The British tanks had rolled into their camp at dawn. No warning, no resistance possible, just surrender. Everything Marlene had been told said this moment would mean horror, violence, the savage revenge of the enemy against German women. Instead, the British soldiers had been efficient, distant, professional, not kind but not cruel. They checked names against lists, separated the women from male prisoners, provided water. No one had been struck, no one had been threatened. This confused Marlene more than anything else. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. February 1941. His deathbed in the Hamburg apartment. The wound from the First War finally claiming him 23 years later. Marlene, listen to me, his hand, skeletal and cold, gripping hers. I fought for Germany. Your duty is to fight for Germany. Never question your orders, never doubt the cause. Germany needs its best. You are among the best. She had joined the Luftwaffe Signals Corps 6 months later, passed the officer examination, only woman in her training class to do so, her father's daughter. Duty, honor, service. Klaus Richter, her fiancé, had been so proud. U-boat commander, 26 years old, handsome in his naval uniform. They had 1 week together before his deployment. That was 8 months ago. No letters, no word. The Atlantic was a graveyard for submarines. Marlene touched the small silver locket around her neck. Inside Klaus's photograph. Smiling, confident, believing. She had believed too. Now, a British officer spoke her language like a native, and nothing made sense. 3 weeks earlier, the reality of their situation had become undeniable. Rommel's Africa Corps was collapsing, supply lines cut, Allied forces closing from all sides, the great German war machine in North Africa grinding to a halt in the sand. Marlene had processed the signals, read the encoded messages, watched the situation deteriorate in real time through the radio traffic, retreat orders, casualty reports, desperate requests for reinforcements that would never come, and then on May 4th, 1943, the officers had simply left. Marlene had been on duty when the convoy of vehicles roared past their tent complex. Male officers, essential personnel, moving fast toward the last evacuation points. No one came to tell the women what to do. Frederica had found Marlene in the communications tent, staring at the radio equipment. They left us. Yes. No orders, no transport, just left. Marlene had felt something crack inside. Not fear, something colder. "We're not soldiers to them," she said quietly. "We're disposable." When the British tanks appeared the next morning, Marlene had made the decision. She gathered the 847 women, told them the truth, organized the surrender, white flags from bed sheets, hands raised, no resistance. If they were going to die, they would die with dignity. But they hadn't died. That was 3 days ago. Now they sat in a holding area, waiting, processing. The British machinery of war cataloguing them like inventory. Marlene watched everything. Officer training never left you. Even as a prisoner, she observed. Analyzed, tried to understand. The British soldiers looked well-fed, healthy, their uniforms clean, properly maintained. Boots, leather, not cardboard, reinforced with wire. She thought of the German soldiers she'd seen in the last months. Gaunt, exhausted, equipment falling apart. Boots held together with improvisation and prayer. These enemies looked like they were winning. That thought sat heavy in her chest. May 28th, 1943. They loaded all 847 women onto trucks. Dawn light harsh across the ruined port of Bizerte. The smell of the sea mixed with smoke from burning buildings. Marlene had expected prison trains, cattle cars, the stories they'd been told about enemy brutality. Instead, they drove to the harbor. A massive ship waited. HMS Empress of Canada, a converted passenger liner, bigger than any building Marlene had ever seen in Hamburg. British sailors directed them up the gangway, not roughly, just efficiently. Military precision. Marlene's mind kept returning to the propaganda, the films they'd been shown, the stern-voiced narrators explaining what capture meant for German women. Torture, forced labor. Worse. Better to die fighting than surrender. She had surrendered anyway. 847 women in her care. She had chosen life. Now she wondered if that choice had been cowardice or wisdom. A British sailor led their group down metal stairs into the ship. Marlene braced herself. This was where the reality would begin, down into the darkness, into the holds, chained, starved. The sailor opened a door. 4 to a cabin, rotate shower access, meal schedule posted outside. Marlene stared. It was a passenger cabin, small, yes, but a real room. 4 beds with actual mattresses, not straw on concrete, not hammocks. Beds. Liesl stepped inside like approaching a dangerous animal. She touched the mattress, pressed her hand down. Springs compressed and released. It's soft? Frederica moved past them, checking the room with systematic precision. A small sink, running water, a mirror, hooks for clothing. "This is a passenger cabin," she said, not a prison cell. Marlene picked up one of the folded sheets on the nearest bed. White, clean. She brought it to her face. Smelled soap. Real soap, not the harsh lye mixture they'd had in Tunisia. "They haven't processed us yet," she said. "This must be temporary." But her voice sounded uncertain even to herself. The ship's engines rumbled to life deep below. Vibration through the metal walls, the journey beginning. Marlene went to the small porthole, watched the African coast slide away. Grey water, grey sky, everything the color of uncertainty. She had no idea if she would ever see Europe again. Behind her, Liesel was crying quietly. Frederica sat on one of the beds, already writing in a small notebook she'd somehow kept through the capture. "What are you writing?" Marlene asked. "Observations, documentation. If we survive this, someone should have a record of what actually happened, not what we were told would happen." Marlene nodded. Military thinking, intelligence gathering, even in captivity, serve the mission. Except, what was the mission now? That evening, a sailor came to collect them for dinner. Marlene had been preparing herself. Prison food, watery gruel, stale bread, the minimum to keep prisoners alive. They followed the sailor through narrow corridors. The ship was massive. Passengers before the war, the sailor explained in broken German, rich people crossing the Atlantic in luxury, now carrying prisoners and troops. He led them into a large dining area, tables and chairs. The smell hit Marlene first. Bread, fresh bread, baking. Her stomach clenched so hard she almost doubled over. When was the last time she'd smelled bread that wasn't mixed with sawdust to stretch the flour? Metal trays waited on a serving line. British sailors dished out portions. Marlene took her tray, looked down at what they'd given her, 2 slices of white bread, real butter, yellow and soft, a piece of fish with boiled potatoes, a cup of coffee that smelled like actual coffee beans, a small bowl of canned peaches. She stood holding the tray, unable to move. This was more food than German soldiers were getting, more food than she'd seen in months. Liesel sat down at a table, staring at her tray like it might vanish. She picked up the bread, bit into it slowly, closed her eyes. "There's butter," she whispered. "Real butter." Marlene sat. Frederica joined them, face carefully neutral. But Marlene saw her hands shaking slightly as she picked up her fork. The propaganda had promised starvation. This was a feast. Marlene ate slowly, each bite deliberate, her mind working through the implications. German U-boats were supposedly strangling British supply lines, starving them, cutting them off. These people didn't look starved. At the next table, 2 British sailors were complaining about the food. "Same bloody thing every day. Can't wait to get back to port for proper meals." Boring. They called this food boring. Marlene thought of the ration lines in Hamburg, people waiting hours for a loaf of bread mixed with potato flour. Her mother's last letter, 6 months ago, describing hunger. Real hunger, these men called abundance boring. Something was very wrong with everything Marlene had been told about this war. The voyage lasted 3 weeks. Every day, the same impossible reality. 3 meals, every single day. Breakfast porridge with milk and sugar, lunch sandwiches and soup, dinner with meat, vegetables, bread. Marlene kept a mental count. By the end of the first week, she'd eaten more protein than German soldiers received in a month. The British guards were firm, but never cruel. They didn't touch the women, didn't threaten, just watched. Made sure no one tried to escape. Escape to where? The middle of the Atlantic Ocean? On the 3rd day, a British medical officer examined all the women. Older man, grey hair, kind eyes. He checked each one for diseases, injuries, gave them vitamin pills in small paper cups. Vitamin pills. Marlene almost laughed. German soldiers dying of malnutrition in Russia, and the British gave vitamins to prisoners. She took the pill, swallowed it, felt the absurdity sitting in her throat like a stone. Frederica spent hours each day on deck when they were allowed outside, writing in her notebook, watching, analyzing. "The guard's equipment," she said one afternoon. "Have you noticed?" Marlene had. Leather boots, well-maintained, proper soles, no wire holding them together. German officers in Tunisia had worn boots reinforced with cardboard, wire through the soles, no replacement parts available. These enemy guards had better equipment than German officers. How? Liesl asked. How can they afford this? We were told they were suffering, starving, their economy collapsing. Frederica looked out at the ocean. We were told many things. At night, Marlene lay in her actual bed with actual sheets and thought about Klaus, somewhere in the Atlantic. If he was still alive, eating what? Enduring what conditions? She was a prisoner eating better than her fiancé who was still fighting. The mathematics of that didn't work. Nothing worked anymore. June 19th, 1943. Land appeared on the horizon. Canada. The ship docked in Halifax Harbour. Marlene had never seen a city untouched by war. No bombed buildings, no rubble, no signs of destruction anywhere. Buildings stood whole and clean. People walked the streets looking well-fed, healthy. Stores had goods in the windows. It looked like peace. She thought of Hamburg, her beautiful Hamburg, the letters from her mother describing the bombing raids, night after night, the city burning, people huddling in shelters. This place looked like war had never touched it. They loaded the women onto trains, Canadian Pacific Railway, long passenger cars with cushioned seats and windows. Through those windows, Marlene watched Canada pass, forests that went on forever. Farmland so vast it made her dizzy. Towns and cities whole and functioning. At night, lights blazed in every window. No blackouts, no fear of bombers overhead. Liesl pressed her face to the glass. They're not even afraid. No, they weren't. The train carried them west, day after day, through abundance, through normalcy, through a world that didn't know the war except as something happening somewhere else. Marlene felt something shifting inside, not understanding yet, just awareness, like watching a crack spread through ice. Everything she knew was wrong, not slightly wrong, not exaggerated, completely, fundamentally wrong. June 22nd, 1943. Late afternoon, the train slowed. Marlene looked out the window, saw a small station ahead. Other women began gathering their few belongings. The train hissed and squealed to a stop. Through the window, a wooden sign hung above the platform. Kitchener, Ontario. The doors opened. Canadian guards told them to step out. All 847 women climbed down onto the platform. Bright June sunshine. The air smelled different here. Fresh, green, like grass and trees and growing things. A man in a neat uniform walked toward them. Station master by the look of him. He stopped in front of the group, opened his mouth to speak. Willkommen in Kitchener. Perfect German, not good German, not practiced German, perfect German, native German, the German of someone who grew up speaking it. Every single woman froze. 847 women stood absolutely still, staring at this Canadian man speaking their language. Marlene felt reality tilt. Are we in the wrong country? Liesl whispered, gripping Marlene's arm hard enough to hurt. More people appeared on the platform, local civilians, coming to watch the prisoners arrive. Two women stood near a bench talking to each other, in German. Then one of them turned to a man and switched to English, back and forth. German and English mixing together like it was the most natural thing in the world. An older man walked past, pushing a cart, humming a song. Marlene recognized it, a folk song from the Rhine Valley. Her father used to sing it. This Canadian man was humming a German song while he worked. Liesl's whisper came again, more desperate. Did the ship bring us to Germany by mistake? But that made no sense. The signs were in English, the flags were Canadian, they were definitely in Canada. So why did everyone speak German? The station master led them down the main street. Marlene looked at everything, trying to understand. A newspaper stand on the corner. Papers in 2 languages. She could read the German one. Der kanadische Bauernfreund. The Canadian Farmer's Friend, a German newspaper. In Canada, they passed a church. The sign out front had words in English and German both. Sunday service 10 a.m/Sonntagsgottesdienst 10 Uhr. Street signs caught her eye. Frederick Street, Wilhelm Street. German names on Canadian streets. Frederica walked beside her, writing furiously in that notebook, not saying anything, just documenting, analyzing. The guards led all 847 women to a large brick building. St. Jerome's College, the station master explained in German, a Catholic school, students gone for summer. The women would stay here. A priest came out to greet them, old man, white hair, kind face. He spoke to them in German with a Swabian accent, the exact accent Liesel's grandmother had. Liesel started crying, not from fear, from confusion. Nothing made sense anymore. The priest patted her shoulder. "You are safe here, child. No harm will come to you." Inside the building, Canadian women showed them to large rooms with beds, real beds, mattresses with springs and sheets and pillows. Marlene sat on a bed. It was soft. She had slept on hard ground for so long that soft felt strange. A Canadian woman showed them the bathroom, turned on a tap. Steam rose from the water, hot water, running hot water. Liesel touched the stream, jerked her hand back. It was actually hot. The woman smiled, said in German, "First hot shower in a while, yes? Take your time, we have plenty of hot water." Plenty. That word again. Evening came. They were led to a huge dining hall. The room could seat hundreds. Long tables stretched in rows. The smell of cooking food made Marlene's mouth water. Real food. Meat cooking, bread baking, butter melting. Canadian women in aprons brought out plates. Marlene looked at her plate and couldn't breathe for a moment. Roast beef. A thick slice of actual beef. Mashed potatoes with gravy, carrots, 2 slices of white bread with real yellow butter, a glass of milk, a piece of apple pie for dessert. She picked up her fork. Cut the meat. 427 grams. She knew because her father had taught her to estimate weight. The shop before the war. Weighing goods for customers. 427 grams of meat. Wehrmacht rations in Africa were 200 grams per week. Per week. She was eating more than twice a week's ration in one meal. Liesel ate her pie slowly, making each bite last. Real apples, real sugar in the crust, real butter. You could taste it. At the next table, 2 local women were talking, complaining in German about rationing. "Only 450 grams of meat this week. How am I supposed to feed my family?" The other woman agreed. Sympathy, frustration. They were upset about 450 grams. German civilians back home got 250 grams per week, if they were lucky. These Canadian women were complaining about getting more meat than Germans ever saw. Marlene wanted to laugh, or cry, or scream. She did none of those things, just ate, counted, calculated. The mathematics didn't work. The propaganda didn't match reality. Nothing fit. That night, lying in a real bed under clean sheets, Marlene tried to make sense of everything. This must be special. A propaganda camp. To make them think Canada was rich and wonderful. This couldn't be normal life here. It had to be fake. But Frederica sat on her bed, writing in that notebook, filling pages, not saying much, but Marlene could see her mind working, adding things up, counting, measuring, thinking. Liesel just stared at the ceiling, too overwhelmed to process anything. Everything they thought they knew about the enemy was wrong. Everything. And that was more terrifying than any torture could have been. Because if this was wrong, what else was a lie? Marlene reached into her pocket, pulled out her father's iron cross, the medal from the First War. She had carried it since his death. Serve with honor. Never question orders. His voice in her memory. But what was honor? What was service? If everything you fought for was built on lies, what did duty mean? Marlene held the iron cross in her hand, looked at it in the dim light. Then she whispered to the empty air, to her father's ghost, to the memory of everything she'd believed. Father, what did you really die for? No answer came. Just the sound of Liesl crying quietly in the next bed. Just the feeling of soft mattress and clean sheets and a full stomach. Just the terrible creeping awareness that everything was about to change. July 1943. The work began. Under the Geneva Convention, prisoners of war could be assigned labor, not weapons manufacturing.
Not military work, but farms, factories, civilian operations. Canada needed workers. So many men had gone overseas to fight. The 847 women would work. Marlene stood in line with the others, waiting for her assignment. Military training had taught her to accept orders without question. This was just another order. A Canadian official called her name. Hartmann, Marlene? Schneider Meats Processing Plant, report Monday 600. Schneider, a German name.
Even the businesses here had German names. The meat processing plant sat on the edge of Kitchener, a massive brick building, modern, clean, nothing like the industrial structures Marlene remembered from Hamburg. Mrs. Bachmann met her at the entrance, 50 years old, grey hair pulled back, strong hands. When she spoke, Marlene heard Hamburg in every word. You must be one of the new workers. I am Mrs. Bachmann. I will show you what to do. The accent was unmistakable. Pure Hamburg German. Marlene had to ask. You are from Hamburg? Mrs. Bachmann smiled, sad and warm at the same time. My grandmother was from Hamburg, came to Canada in 1870. I was born here, but grandmother taught me to speak proper Hamburg German. She said I should never forget where we came from. 1870. 73 years ago. 3 generations. They worked side by side, cutting and packaging meat. The plant processed 2,000 hogs every week. 2,000. Marlene tried to imagine that much meat. In Hamburg, people waited in lines for hours to get a small piece of pork. One piece, maybe 200 grams if you were fortunate. Here, mountains of meat moved through the factory every single day. The machinery never broke down. When something needed maintenance, replacement parts arrived within hours, not months, not never. Hours. In Tunisia, equipment had failed constantly. No parts available, improvise or do without. Here, everything worked. During the morning break, workers could eat sausages, free, as much as they wanted. Marlene watched Canadian workers grab sausages and eat them like it was nothing special. Casual, ordinary. She took one small sausage, ate it slowly. Real meat, real spices. Not mystery protein mixed with breadcrumbs and hope. At lunch, Mrs. Bachmann sat with Marlene, opened a letter. Her face grew sad as she read. From my cousin in Hamburg, she explained. She writes about the situation there. Mrs. Bachmann looked at Marlene, really looked at her. You are from Hamburg too, yes? Marlene nodded, felt tears starting, pushed them back. Your family? I do not know. No letters for months. Mrs. Bachmann reached across the table, touched Marlene's hand. I pray for them. I pray for all of them. Marlene looked at this woman, same German heritage, same language, same city roots. But Mrs. Bachmann lived in abundance while her cousins starved. The only difference was which side of the ocean their ancestors chose. That night, Marlene wrote in the diary she had started keeping. Hidden under her mattress, Military Precision Logs. Week 1, July 1943. Schneider Meats processes 2,000 hogs weekly. Single plant produces more meat than entire Hamburg receives monthly. Workers receive free food during breaks. Sausages, real meat. Equipment modern, maintained, functional. No shortages, no failures. Question: how can enemy afford this during total war? No answer yet. Liesel worked on a farm outside town. The Wagner family, 160 acres. Marlene visited on a Sunday. Mrs. Bachmann had arranged it. A kindness. The Wagner farm had 2 automobiles. 2, one for work, one for church and town. Electric milking machines in the barn. A radio in the living room. A telephone on the wall. Liesel's family farm in Bavaria had been 40 acres. No electricity in the barn. No telephone. 1 horse and prayers for good weather. This Canadian farm was 4 times larger and had machines for everything. Mr. Wagner was kind but serious. His 3 sons were overseas, all 3, fighting in Europe, fighting against Germany. Mrs. Wagner spoke German with a Bavarian accent. Her parents had come from near Munich. She treated Liesel like family, fed her the same food they ate. On Sunday dinner, Marlene sat at their table. Roast chicken, potatoes with butter, fresh vegetables from the garden, apple cake for dessert, real sugar in the cake, real eggs, real everything. Mrs. Wagner put more food on Liesel's plate. Eat, child, you are too thin. We have plenty. Plenty. While her sons fought a war, this family had plenty. While Liesel's brother fought the same war from the other side, her family had nothing. Marlene excused herself, went outside, stood in the yard looking at the barn, the fields, the machines. How could this be? Doctor. Frederica Adler worked at the hospital, translating for elderly German-speaking patients who had never learned English. One day, Marlene visited her there, found her in a corridor writing in that eternal notebook. "What have you learned?" Marlene asked. Frederica looked up, 31 years old, too intelligent for her own good. That was what their commanders had always said. Too many questions. "I have learned," Frederica said quietly, "that you can be German and Canadian at the same time. That culture and government are separate things, that you can love your language and heritage without loving what your government has become." She closed the notebook. "I translated for an old woman today, 83 years old, 3 sons in the Canadian Army, all 3 fighting against Germany. I asked her how that was possible, how she could speak German at home but send her sons to fight Germany. What did she say? She said they are not fighting for Germany, they are fighting against Nazis. She said you can love German culture and still hate what the Nazis have done to it." Marlene felt something crack inside. You could be German and free. You could love your heritage without loving the government. In Germany, those things were inseparable, culture and state, language and party, all one thing. Here they were separate. "I do not understand," Marlene said. "Neither did I, but I am beginning to." 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 6. Every day, more evidence. Marlene logged everything with military precision. Week 2. Food rations, 3 times German soldier allocations. Breakfast porridge with milk, sugar. Lunch sandwiches with real meat. Dinner always includes protein, vegetables, bread. No one goes hungry. Week 3. Medical care superior to German military hospitals. Vitamins distributed weekly. Doctor checks all workers monthly. No charge. Free healthcare. Week 4. Guard equipment observed. Leather boots well maintained. Uniforms clean, repaired. Compare to Wehrmacht officers, Tunisia. Cardboard boots, wire repairs. Shortages constant. Week 5. Overheard workers complaining. Boring food. Same meals every week. They call abundance boring. German civilians call scraps blessing. Week 6. Found German-language newspaper archives at library. Read pre-war editions, open criticism of government, multiple political parties, free elections. In Germany, criticize government equals death. Here, criticize government equals Tuesday. The evidence piled higher every day. Marlene could not ignore it anymore. In the dormitory at night, the women shared their observations. One woman from a furniture factory. The machines never break. Never. They have spare parts for everything. Everything. In Germany, we waited months for parts that never came.
And another from a bakery. They throw away more bread than we saw in a month. Throw away because it is 1 day old. A younger woman started crying. My brother is in Russia eating frozen bread and fighting with broken rifles. Why? Why are we so poor and they are so rich? Some of the older women, the true believers, got angry. Brigitte von Kempen stood up. 35 years old. Nazi party organizer from Berlin before the war. Voice hard as iron. This is propaganda, all of it. They are trying to break us. Stay strong. Remember who you are. Remember the Führer. But Liesel shook her head. It is not propaganda. The Wagner family gets letters from relatives in Germany. Everyone there is starving. Everyone here complains about rationing that gives them more food than German soldiers ever see. The arguments went on for hours. Some insisted it was all manipulation. Others accepted what they saw. Most fell somewhere in the middle, confused, lost. Marlene said nothing during these debates. She just listened, observed, wrote in her hidden diary. Week 8, division forming among the 847. Approximately 250 refused to accept evidence, hold to propaganda despite reality. Approximately 340 beginning transformation, accept data, question everything previously taught. Remaining 257 conflicted, want to believe old truths but cannot deny new evidence. I am among the 340. Father, forgive me, but I cannot unknow what I have seen. September arrived. Mrs. Bachmann invited Marlene to church. German Lutheran service. Half the sermon in German, half in English. Marlene had not been to church since leaving Germany. In the military, faith was secondary to duty. She sat in the wooden pew and listened to the pastor preach. Not about sacrifice for the state. Not about duty to the Führer. Not about Germany's destiny. About love, forgiveness, peace, simple, human, true. Love your enemy, the pastor said, for your enemy is human too, made by the same God, worthy of the same mercy. In Germany, the churches served the state. Priests blessed the soldiers, blessed the war, blessed the cause. Here the church questioned the state, spoke of conscience over command. After the service, an old man approached Marlene, 70 years old at least, weathered face, kind eyes. He spoke in German. You are one of the prisoners? Marlene nodded, tensed, ready for anger. I fought in the First War, he said. Against Germany. I killed German soldiers. Marlene said nothing. But you are not my enemy. You are a victim of bad leaders. Welcome to freedom, daughter. He held out his hand. Marlene stared at it. This man had killed Germans, had fought her father's generation, but he called her daughter. She took his hand, shook it. Thank you, she whispered. Walking back to St. Jerome's, Marlene felt tears on her face, did not bother wiping them away. The weight of truth was crushing her carefully constructed denial. Everything was crumbling. September 24th, 1943. The German-Canadian community held Oktoberfest, a small, private celebration. They invited the prisoners, all 847 women loaded onto trucks. Guards supervised but did not interfere. The Concordia Club, large brick building.
German flags and Canadian flags hanging side by side. Marlene walked through the door and stopped breathing. The smell. God, the smell. Schnitzel frying in butter, sauerkraut cooking with bacon, potato dumplings boiling, apple strudel baking, her grandmother's kitchen, Hamburg, 1936, Sunday dinners before the world broke. The memories hit like physical blows. 300 German Canadians filled the hall. Old people, middle-aged families, young women whose husbands and brothers were overseas fighting. 50 Canadian guards stood around the edges, watching, but not interfering. The food covered long tables. Platters of breaded schnitzel, still hot and crispy, bowls of red cabbage cooked with apples, mountains of potato dumplings with butter melting on top, sauerkraut mixed with bacon, rye bread sliced thick, apple strudel golden brown dusted with sugar, real food, German food, food Marlene thought she would never taste again. Each woman received one small glass of German beer, not much, but real German beer. Brewed right here in Kitchener, Liesl took a sip and started crying. It tastes exactly like the beer from my village, exactly. A band played in the corner, accordion, violin, drums, traditional German folk songs, songs about mountains and rivers, and home. Every woman in that room knew these songs. Every word Marlene found herself singing. Unconsciously, the words came automatic. Her father's voice, her mother humming while cooking, her grandmother teaching her the old melodies. Then she realized what she was doing and stopped. How could the enemy feel like home? An old man approached her, 70 years old, white hair, face lined with 7 decades of life. He spoke Plattdeutsch, Low German, the dialect of Hamburg and the northern coast, the exact dialect Marlene's grandmother had spoken. "You are from Hamburg, I can hear it in your accent." Marlene nodded, could not trust her voice. "I am from Hamburg too, came here in 1878, 65 years ago. My brother stayed, his family stayed."
I have a granddaughter there, Heidi, 16 years old. His eyes filled with tears. We wrote letters before the war, every month. But nothing comes now, nothing. Do you know what it is like there? Is she? The old man could not finish the question. Marlene knew what he was asking. She had processed the signals from Hamburg, read the casualty reports, seen the bombing damage assessments. She could lie, give him comfort, but she was so tired of lies. If she is in Hamburg, Marlene said quietly, she is likely dead. The bombing. There is nothing left. The city burns every night. Thousands dead. Tens of thousands. The civilians have no shelters adequate for what falls from the sky. The old man made a sound. Not quite a sob, just air leaving his lungs. My brother's granddaughter, same blood as me, same family. He stayed in Germany. I came here 65 years ago, that choice. His granddaughter is 16, probably dead.
"My granddaughters here are 17 and 19, alive, healthy, free." Tears ran down his wrinkled face. One family chose freedom. One chose the Führer. Guess which one's children survived. He walked away, shoulders shaking. Marlene stood frozen. The mathematics crystallized in her mind with brutal clarity. This man was German, free German, prosperous German, democratic German. His niece was German, starving German, Nazi German, probably dead German, same blood, same heritage, same culture, different government. That was the only variable, and it determined everything: life or death, freedom or slavery, abundance or starvation. The government you chose determined whether you lived or died. Germany had chosen wrong. Marlene found Frederica sitting against the wall, always observing, always analyzing. "You were right," Marlene said. About everything. My father was deceived. Klaus is dying for a lie, and I have been defending it. Frederica looked at her. No triumph in her eyes, just sadness. What will you do with that knowledge? I do not know, but I cannot unknow it. The band played another song, everyone singing, German words in Canadian mouths, heritage celebrated, culture honored, but no swastikas, no Hitler, no hate, just people being German without being Nazi. It was possible. Marlene could see it. Real, undeniable. You could love your culture and still be free. Germany had forgotten that, or never known it. That night, back in the dormitory, the women fell apart. Some cried, others sat silent. A few got angry. Brigitte von Kempen stood on her bed, shouted at them all. You are being manipulated. This is exactly what they want. You are weak. Traitors! Marlene stood up, military bearing, officer's voice. I have logged evidence for 3 months, measured, counted, verified. The data is irrefutable. We were lied to, not small lies, fundamental lies about reality. Her voice carried through the room. The enemy treats us better than our government treats our soldiers. The enemy's people are free, prosperous, healthy. Our people are enslaved, starving, dying. She paused, let the words settle. We fought for the wrong side. Silence, then chaos. Women shouting, arguments erupting. The guards had to come separate groups, made everyone go to bed, but the damage was done. The 847 were no longer united, they were divided. 3 camps, the transformers, the resistors, the conflicted. Marlene lay in her bed that night, pulled out the letter she had written, the one she would never send. My dearest Klaus, if you survive, find a way to surrender to the Americans or British. They will feed you, treat you as human. Germany will let you starve for pride. Choose life, choose truth. I love you, but I will not honor your death for a lie. Marlene. She folded the letter, put it away. Klaus was probably already dead. U-boats did not survive long in the Atlantic, but if by some miracle he lived, she wanted him to know the truth, even if the truth destroyed everything they had believed together. Outside, the September night was clear, stars visible through the window. Marlene thought about her father, his deathbed words, duty, honor, service. He had been a good man, brave, loving, devoted, and completely deceived. Goodness did not make the cause good. That was the lesson. You could be honorable and still serve evil. You could be brave and still fight for lies. You could sacrifice everything and waste it all on nothing. Her father had died believing. Klaus was dying believing. Marlene had believed too, but she could not believe anymore. The evidence was too strong, the mathematics too clear, the reality too undeniable. She reached under her pillow, found her father's iron cross, held it in the darkness. Father, she whispered, I am sorry. But you were wrong, and I have to be right, even if it means betraying everything you taught me. No answer came, just the sound of women crying in the darkness, just the terrible weight of truth crushing comfortable lies, just the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same again. October 1943. The transformation began in earnest. Marlene stopped resisting, stopped defending, stopped pretending the evidence did not exist. She became a student again, not of military signals or communications protocol, of democracy, of freedom, of truth. Mrs. Bachmann brought her books, political philosophy, Canadian history, American founding documents, works banned in Germany for decades. Marlene read them during breaks at the meat plant, in the evenings after work, late into the night by dim lamplight. She read about separation of powers, checks and balances, free press, independent judiciary, rights that governments could not take away, concepts that did not exist in Germany. One afternoon, Mrs. Bachmann sat with her during lunch. "Do you understand now," she asked, "the difference?" "I am beginning to," Marlene said. "In Germany, the government controls everything. Press, courts, churches, businesses, everything serves the state. And here? Here the government works for the people. You can fire them, vote them out, replace them." Mrs. Bachmann nodded. "My grandmother left Germany in 1870 to escape Bismarck's militarism. She saw where it was heading. She chose freedom." "And her family who stayed?" "Some died in the First War. Some died in this one. Some survive, barely. In her letters, my cousin describes hell, bombing, starvation, terror." Mrs. Bachmann looked at Marlene. "Your father was a good man, yes?" "Yes. Good men can serve bad causes. The cause does not become good because good men die for it. It just means good men died for nothing." The words hit like bullets. December 1943. The Canadian authorities began allowing letters home, one per month, heavily censored. Marlene wrote to her mother. "Dear mother, I am well. The work is not difficult. The food is adequate. I pray for you every day. Canada is not what we were told. The people here are kind. I am learning much. I hope this letter finds you safe. Your loving daughter, Marlene." What she wanted to write, what the censors would never allow. "Mother, they lied to us about everything. The enemy is not barbaric. They treat us better than our own army ever did. I do not know if we are fighting for the right side. I think we are the bad ones. I am confused and frightened, and everything I believed is ash." That truth had to stay in her diary, hidden under her mattress. By December, it was 143 pages long, single-spaced. Military precision documentation. Evidence log, month 5. Total food consumed exceeds German soldier rations by factor of 3.2. Medical care superior to Wehrmacht field hospitals. Working conditions exceed international labor standards. Freedom of speech, absolute. Have observed 47 instances of Canadians openly criticizing government without consequence. Conclusion: Germany is not losing because the enemy is strong. Germany is losing because Germany is wrong about everything. Father Klaus, forgive me. But I cannot lie anymore, not even to myself. February 1945. The Red Cross notification came on a Tuesday morning. Marlene was at work when the message arrived. A guard brought it to the plant, found her at the cutting station. "Letter for you, Hartmann, Red Cross." She knew before opening it. Red Cross notifications only meant one thing. Her hands shook as she unfolded the paper. U-534 sunk May 1944, all hands lost. Commander Klaus Richter, age 26, confirmed killed in action, May 1944. The notification had taken 9 months to reach her, 9 months of writing letters to a dead man. Klaus had been dead since last May, almost a year. Mrs. Bachmann found her sitting on the floor outside the plant, not crying, just sitting, staring at nothing. "Child, what happened?" Marlene handed her the notification. Mrs. Bachmann read it, sat down beside her, said nothing, just sat. After a long time, Marlene spoke. He was 26. He believed in the cause, believed Germany was right, died in the Atlantic in freezing water, thinking he served his country. He did serve his country. No, he served the men who lied to his country. He died for nothing. He died for what he believed, that is something. Belief in a lie is not noble, it is just tragic. Marlene looked at Mrs. Bachmann. "I loved him, still love him. Love. but I cannot honor his death the way Germany would want me to. I cannot say he died heroically for a just cause, because the cause was not just, it was evil. You can grieve and still know truth. In Germany, grief demands blind patriotism. You must say the dead died well, died for something worthy. You cannot grieve and also say he died for the wrong reason. But here you can. Yes, here I can grieve Klaus and still say the war was wrong. That is freedom too. The freedom to love someone and still acknowledge they died for a lie. That night, Marlene wrote Klaus's eulogy in her diary, knowing she would never speak it aloud. Klaus Richter was brave, loyal, loving. He died believing he served Germany. He did not. He served men who used Germany to serve themselves. His death was waste. Meaningless sacrifice for meaningless cause. But I will not compound the waste with more lies. I will tell the truth he never got to hear. That is how I honor him. Not with comfortable patriotism, with uncomfortable truth. Rest in peace, my love. You deserved better than the cause you died for. May 7th, 1945. The guards called all 847 women to the main hall, turned on the radio, turned it up loud. Then the announcement came. Germany had surrendered. Unconditional surrender. The war in Europe was over. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then some women started crying. Others collapsed. A few smiled with relief. Most just stood there, processing. 6 years of war. Finished. Marlene felt her knees go weak. She sat down hard on the floor. It was over. The dying would stop. She should feel defeated. Germany had lost. Everything they fought for had failed. Instead, she felt relief. "Thank God," she whispered. "Thank God, it is over." In June, the Canadian government made an announcement. Repatriation would begin, sending prisoners home. But they offered a choice: stay in Canada with a sponsor and a job, or return to Germany. This choice tore the women apart. Marlene knew her decision immediately. She would return, not because Germany deserved her loyalty, because Germany needed witnesses. Mrs. Bachmann argued with her. "Stay here. I will sponsor you. The plant will hire you permanently. You can build a life here, in freedom." "I know, and I am grateful, but Germany needs people who have seen freedom, who know what is possible. If everyone who learned the truth stays here, who will teach Germany? You cannot save a country that does not want to be saved." "Maybe not, but I have to try. My father died believing lies. Klaus died believing lies. Millions died believing lies. Someone has to tell the truth they never heard." Frederica decided to stay. The hospital offered her a permanent position. "I have no family left in Berlin," she said. "The city is divided now. Soviet zone is dangerous. Here I can help refugees. Build a new life." Liesel stayed too. The Wagner family sponsored her. Of the 847, 300 decided to stay. 547 would return. Marlene was among the 547th. October 1945. The farewell ceremony at Concordia Club. The guard commander gave a short speech. "You were never our enemies, just people caught in a terrible war. Some of you learned, some refused. Those who learned go tell the truth. That is how we really win wars, not with bullets, with truth." Then Marlene spoke, representing the 547 returning. "We came as soldiers, we leave as witnesses. We believed lies, we saw truth. We will not lie for comfort again. Some in Germany will call us traitors. We call ourselves truth-tellers. Germany lost the war, but Germans can win the peace if we choose truth over pride." Mrs. Bachmann gave Marlene a package, food and medicine, a letter for her cousin in Hamburg, and an address. "If you need help, write me. I will sponsor you to return here. The door is always open. January 1946. The ship docked in Bremerhaven, Germany. Marlene walked down the gangway into a country she barely recognized. The port was damaged, buildings half destroyed. People shuffled past looking skeletal and grey. This was the great Germany, the powerful nation that was supposed to rule the world. It was broken, starving, defeated. Marlene took a train to Hamburg, 2 days, because the rail lines were damaged. When she arrived, she could not believe her eyes. Hamburg was gone. Block after block of rubble, buildings burned to shells, craters where streets used to be. She found her mother in what remained of their apartment building, 2 rooms still standing in a structure that once held 20 families. Her mother weighed 43 kilograms, clothes hanging on her like sheets on a skeleton. When Marlene walked in, her mother stared like seeing a ghost. "You are alive." Marlene dropped Mrs. Bachmann's package. It split open. Cans of food rolled across the broken floor. Her mother fell to her knees, started crying. Real food, food from Canada, food that might keep her alive another month. Marlene knelt down, held her mother. "Mama, I brought food." Her mother looked up, face aged 20 years in 2. "Did we win?" Marlene felt her heart break. "No, Mama, we lost, and that is the best thing that could have happened." Her mother stared, then nodded slowly. "I know. We deserved to lose." Something in those words made Marlene pause. "Mama, how long have you known?" Her mother looked down at her skeletal hands. "Since 1938, when they burned the synagogues, when your father came home from the shop and told me what he saw. He was proud, said Germany was becoming strong. I saw evil." Tears on her mother's face. "I wrote you letters, tried to warn you. The censors stopped them all. I could not save you from the lies. I could only survive and pray you would learn the truth before it killed you." Marlene held her mother tighter. Her mother had known, all along, had suffered in silence while Marlene fought for lies. "Why did you not tell father?" "I tried, once. He said I was being hysterical, that I did not understand politics. After that I stayed quiet. What choice did I have? Speak up and disappear, or stay silent and survive to see you again?" Marlene understood. The terrible mathematics of tyranny. Speak truth and die, or stay silent and endure. Her mother had chosen to endure. For her. "I am home now, Mama, and I will tell the truth. For both of us. For father. For everyone who could not speak. The years that followed were hard. Rebuilding from ruins, Marlene worked with the British occupation forces. Her English from Canada made her valuable. She translated for denazification proceedings, helped process refugees, told her story to everyone who would listen. "I was a prisoner in Canada. They treated me better than the Wehrmacht treated its own soldiers." That tells you everything you need to know about which side was right. Some called her a traitor. Most just listened, nodded. They knew. In 1948, Marlene met Alistair Thornton, British officer, kind, gentle, nothing like the propaganda image of the enemy. They married. She moved to England. Her mother came to live with them. Died peacefully in 1953, age 72, free at last. In 1961, Marlene published her diary. Expanded with memories and context, she called it "The Enemy Who Fed Us." The book told the truth. Some Germans were angry, but more read it and recognized themselves in the story. In 1971, Alistair died. Heart attack. 23 years of marriage, 3 children, 5 grandchildren. England had been good to her, but it was never home. And so, 1972, Marlene stood at the Hamburg airport, one-way ticket to Toronto. Mrs. Bachmann, 82 years old, met her at the airport. tears streaming down both their faces. "Welcome home, child." I never thought I would say this, but yes, home. They drove to Kitchener, past Schneider Meats, still operating, past the Wagner farm where Liesel waved from the porch, past St. Jerome's College. "Frederica died last year," Mrs. Bachman said quietly. "Heart, she was 78. At the hospital until the end. Helped 2,847 refugees over 30 years. They named a wing after her." That evening they went to Concordia Club. Small gathering, the old-timers who remembered. "You came back," one old man said, "after all these years." "I had to. This is where I learned to be free." September 24th, 1983. 40 years to the day since the Oktoberfest that changed everything. 127 of the original 847 women gathered at Concordia Club. Marlene was 64, grandmother of 5, grey-haired, weathered by 4 decades of truth-telling. She stood to speak. 40 years ago in this room I met an old man. He was from Hamburg, like me. His granddaughter Heidi was 16. Trapped in Germany. He asked if I knew what happened to her. The room was silent. In 1945, when I returned, I searched for her, found her name on the casualty lists. Heidi Müller, age 16, killed in the bombing, February 1945. Marlene's voice stayed steady. That man's family chose freedom in 1878, came to Canada. His granddaughters lived. Heidi's family chose to stay in Germany, chose the Führer in 1933. She died. We asked in 1943, are we in the wrong country? The answer is, we were in the right country. We just did not know it yet. Canada showed us what Germans could be: free, prosperous, good. Without a dictator, our government made us believe freedom was weak. Canada proved freedom is strong.
We were prisoners who found liberation in captivity, soldiers who learned truth from enemies, believers who became witnesses. My father died believing a lie. I lived to tell the truth he never heard. Which one really served Germany? Standing ovation, all 127 women, crying, remembering. After Marlene spoke, Liesel stood. 69 years old, 4 children, 9 grandchildren, all Canadian. My brother survived the war, she said, came home to Bavaria, 1946, wrote me.
Said I was traitor for staying here, disowned me. Her voice broke. He died in 1979, bitter, angry, never accepted that Germany was wrong. We never reconciled. Tears on her face. But my children are free, my grandchildren vote, my daughters went to university. That is what I chose, not betrayal, freedom. Another woman stood. Brigitte von Kempen, 83 years old, one of the 250 resistors who never transformed in 1943. The room tensed. I fought you all, Brigitte said. Called you traitors, believed the Führer until 1947. She looked at Marlene. I was wrong. It took 2 years of seeing the ruins to accept it. But I was wrong. You were right. Germany was wrong. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see what you saw in 1943. She sat down. The room exploded in applause. That was the real victory. Not the war. The willingness to face truth. 1998. A university student came to interview Marlene. She was 79, one of 3 original women still alive. What do you want young people to learn from your story? Marlene thought for a long moment. Question everything your government tells you about enemies. We were told the British would torture us. They fed us. We were told democracy was weak. It was strong. We were told the Führer was Germany. He was Germany's destroyer. Real patriotism is not blind loyalty. It is demanding your country deserve your loyalty. We were never in the wrong country. We were on the wrong side. And the people we called enemies showed us what our own people could have been. The student asked one more question. Do you hate Germany? Marlene thought for a long time. No, I love Germany, German language, music, food, culture. I love what Germany could have been, what it became after the war, what it is now. But I hate what Germany chose in 1933. I hate the lies we believed. I hate that it took 60 million deaths to learn what Canada knew all along. That freedom works. That democracy works, that you can be proud of your heritage without hating everyone else. She looked at the student. Germany today is what I wished for in 1943. Free, democratic, peaceful, prosperous. It took the total destruction of everything to get here. Canada never had to be destroyed to be free. They just chose it. That is the lesson. Choose freedom before you have to be forced into it by catastrophe. June 2001, Marlene Hartman Thornton died peacefully in Toronto, age 82. Her gravestone read, German by birth, Canadian by awakening, British by choice, human by conviction, truth over tribe. Her diary sits in the Canadian War Museum. 192 pages of truth. The cover holds two symbols. Her father's iron cross, Mrs. Bachmann's maple leaf pin. The last entry, written in 1998. Two symbols, one truth. Honor demands honesty. I finally earned both. The numbers tell the story. 847 women entered Canada in 1943. 0 died in Canadian custody. 300 stayed and became citizens. 547 returned to Germany. 34 returned to Canada later, including Marlene in 1972. 127 attended the 1983 reunion. Marlene was the last survivor. Her testimony remains, a witness to the truth. That enemies can teach you freedom, that propaganda dies when confronted with kindness, that humanity transcends nationality, that sometimes the greatest act of patriotism is admitting your country was wrong. The enemy who fed us was not really the enemy, they were just free, and 847 women finally understood